thing that we knew about dubs was those bad dubs that you'd see on airplanes or, you know, that whatever they were, I think was really badly acted. It didn't
We
sound
don't get them now.
Didn't sound right, it didn't, you know, there was no sound effects, you know. So we didn't know about acting in a dubbing environment, so most of us didn't know anything about this. We were like literally, I was working for people who were inventing this business as we were going. And so now the talent coming in knows what this is. They're anime fans. Some of them have been anime fans their entire life, and they just now found it, and they became actors and found themselves in an opportunity to be in one of these things. And they stick with it because the acting is fun in anime. It's one of the most fun voice acting you can do if you're an actor, if you really love acting. So that's changed a lot, and that's what the quality of performance has increased tremendously. Even though, you know, the directors haven't improved necessarily, but the quality of performance has. The quality, the technical quality of the shows coming from Japan are also much better. They used to be 10 or 20 years behind us technologically. Now they're right there. So so that the shows feel more rich and expensive and all the things that we as Americans tend to like. The technology is also been the main thing, is that the technology changed the business model, changed the equation. Before, when looping first started back in the 30s and 40s, they were maybe getting, you could dub maybe 8-9 lines an hour, maybe if you were lucky, because the process was very cumbersome. They'd make a loop out of the piece of film where the offending line is. They'd put it up on a projector. They'd run it over and over and over again. And as an actor, you'd kind of try to catch it each time it came by.
Sure.
So you got enough takes, and then an editor would try to make it fit. When I did Robotech, it had become somewhat automated. It became ADR instead of looping. And we were chasing video, 3/4 inch videotape and a reel-to-reel 1 inch or 2 inch or however many tracks they were doing, reel-to-reel audio. And so we would be able to get about 12 to 15 lines an hour done. 20 if you were really good, had a great script. But then you would have to, you know, back up, all the machines have to lock up, and then it starts rolling, and then until everything syncs, you really can't record. It was a process. When everything went digital, no more videotape, no more audio tape, you just pop from thing to thing. You can squeeze, you can move, if the take isn't perfect, you can manipulate it. That took everything up to where, like on a good show that I'll do 35, 40 lines an hour, easy. With a good actor who knows what they're doing and a script writer who knows what they're doing, you know, we can do magic for half the money that we did back in the 80s, because it takes it takes 25% of the time. You know, so it went from a week for an episode to 2.5 days, and that made it affordable, because the biggest cost is not the talent, and it's not the script writer, it's the stupid studio, the room, and the big machine, and the engineer you got to pay for 8 hours a day. You know, so that's what allowed the big boom in the end of the 90s and the beginning of 2000s. That's what fueled that. Unfortunately, piracy came in behind it and killed it, but that's what fueled what really continued after the DVD market was killed. The conventions kept the fandom going, because they kept growing even though DVD sales collapsed.
Well, the fandom was big in the clubs because basically
Yeah.
back in the 80s and early 90s, that was the only.
It was the only place, yeah.
Access to these shows, you know.
But the fandom is at critical mass now, where it's not going away just
Yeah.
because the product isn't around. And so that's the last change, in that it's now a self-propelling business where it wasn't before.
Well, are also the Japanese animators now intentionally gearing things more towards
No.
American audiences?
No, in fact, I got to ask the president of Tatsunoko Productions that very question.
Really?
Yes, and he said, no, we don't care what you guys watch. we make programs for Americans. If you like them and want to pay us for them, great. But we make a program for the Japanese market. It just so happens that with filmmakers like Quentin Tarantino and people like that, they brought that storytelling style into Western storytelling. And so it's looking like it's looking like they're edging more towards us, but we're actually edging more towards them.
I think it's interesting because the anime industry got started because of Tezuka and his love for Disney. And Tezuka emulated Disney, everybody else in Japan emulated Tezuka, and now it's coming kind of full circle.
Oh, Disney's emulating Tezuka now.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Oh, quite a bit.
Yeah.
In fact, they talk about that. You read some of the articles about the animators and all that stuff.
Yeah.
This circular thing, and Miyazaki talks a lot about that as well.
And now Disney even licenses some of the Miyazaki movies.
Yeah, I wish they did better dubs.
Yeah.
Their dubs are a
Yes.
little dull.
Yeah.
They're a little
Very,
dull.
yeah.
And it's because they don't know. They're not specialists at it. And you bring a mainstream actor into an anime environment and you have them act at the level they need to be, they feel like they're overacting terribly. It makes them uncomfortable.
Right.
Because on film, you can't do that.
Yeah.
And so they don't push them quite as much. So that, like Princess Mononoke, I felt like they were asleep.
Mm-hmm.
You know? It's like,
Yeah.
oh, just push the actor a little bit. These guys are great.
Actually,
They can
I've
do
never
it.
heard the dub of Mononoke.
Pardon?
I've never heard the dub of Mononoke. I have the Blu-ray and I always
It's
watch
Matt
it.
Damon and Minnie Driver. They're terrible. And they're terrible in it.
They
Well,
put
one
me
of
to
the
sleep,
things I noticed
actually.
with, in Kiki's Delivery Service in particular, one of my favorite films, the sequence where Kiki is first coming to the town and she's flying over the ocean and there's gulls. In the original, she's not saying anything. It's just, you know, her all out there. And in the Disney version, she's going, wee, wee, wee. It's like, this is not necessary. You don't have to do it.
No, that's true. But there's a certain level of Americanization that certain companies kind of have to do.
Hmm.
If you're Disney, you got to give it a Disney-ness to it, or,
Yeah.
or people get disappointed. And frankly, in Japanese animation, to have silent action with flaps is not an incorrect thing.
Right.
To have silent action without flaps here is like, you know, violating a filmmaker's 101 law.
Right.
So we tend to add, and you know, and it depends on the client. You know, there's some clients that don't want us to do it. We do it anyway and let them take it out
Sure.
because I can't stand seeing. There needs to be something in that mouth.
Right, yeah.
Right. Well, you know, I'm a big fan of subtitles
Yeah.
myself. Not because I don't think they should be dubbed in English, but because I think they just do such a bad job of it. Even the
A
big
lot do.
professional studios, you know.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask this, we're talking about Miyazaki and Tezuka, and people were talking, because Miyazaki's latest films to me, while they've been stunningly beautiful, they're not good stories. I mean, nothing's happening. Arietta, nothing really happened. The Wind,
Wind Rises?
The Wind Rises. I mean, it's a great, beautiful looking movie, but nothing happens, you know, he lives his life and he passed away. There's no conflict, there's nothing to resolve, you know. And they talked about with Tezuka, and Tezuka wasn't afraid to experiment later on. You know, he even did, you know, some more adult movies like Cleopatra and stuff like that.
Mhm.
So why isn't Miyazaki willing to experiment even after he's coming out of retirement for the 5th time? You know,
Why is he willing to?
Why is he not willing to try
Well,
something
sometimes it's
new?
safe. I mean, sometimes you just
Yeah.
want to be safe, and sometimes there's something new you may have tried. It didn't work. I try stuff new all the time and erase it because it just didn't work.
I was just going to ask you, what trends have you noticed sort of within the industry, both within the stuff that you work on, but also just in the industry as a whole? Like, where do you see things moving in the next?
Well, the American anime industry's matured quite a bit.
Yeah,
It used to be
absolutely.
one note. It used to be Shonen Jump shows and everything else, and
Right.
hentai.
Pokemon.
Pokemon.
Yeah.
And now the American anime market is divided up into genre, as it is in Japan, and so that's a big difference. So for instance, you have companies like Aniplex who are bringing out in some high-end animation stuff out of Japan, and they'll sell it for a lot more money than everybody else because now they have a niche market that they've created. When the Shonen's guys got their, you know, all the Naruto, Bleach guys, they're all over there too. They love those shows. And so the marketplace is very much fractionalized, which is usually a bad thing, and it was for quite a while. I mean, look how many companies went out of business. You know, Genion went first, and then Pioneer, and Genion, and Bandai, and God, it was like a bloodbath there.
Man,
My impression,
yeah.
they were spreading themselves too thin. That was my impression.
Yeah, I got a little bit more inside look at that. It depended. Each company had a different issue. One of them, Bandai, I think, realized that they had to double down on the marketing, but realized too late. So they couldn't make the numbers change around enough for Japan to want to stick with it. Because they were really doing this good stuff and their sales were showing it, but it was a little too late. Genion just refused to market. They didn't want to market the way in which anime fans, get marketed to. And you have to talk to people where they live. And the last thing, and the thing that really changed was up until just a few years ago, Japan would not embrace streaming. They were terrified of streaming. They were thinking, we're already getting pirated and now we're going to just throw it out there in a digital file. And so it was a few years ago, right after the DVD market collapsed, that's when they started allowing streaming, and that's turned their industry around. It's opened up, partly because it coincided with the fact that streaming has now been monetized, and it wasn't monetized 10 years ago.
Right.
But it's highly monetized now.
Well, it's
So.
just changing with the technology. I mean, I appreciate people that are upset about piracy, but I can't imagine that the amount of piracy that was going on was seriously damaging.
It was.
It really was
Yeah,
that
it was
bad?
huge. It was huge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because people have been.
If something would get here, it was huge in twofold. If a company put out something and then it started to get pirated, right when they're spending $500,000 to dub the thing, their sales you could see the sales difference.
Yeah.
So what happened was, if something got pirated and thrown online, and a company saw it, they would walk away. They wouldn't dub it. Because why were we dubbing? Somebody else has already done it for free, so we're not going to do it. And so that killed us. It killed it. You know.
But we had a lot of the fan subs back in the 90s. I mean, you know.
But they didn't have the internet.
Yeah,
Exactly.
that's
Yeah. That's changed.
The internet changed everything.
You had VHS tapes you were sharing.
Yeah.
Exactly,
Plus VHS
yeah.
tapes are terrible. Now you can have a fully digital file that looks just as good as what you saw in the theater. Yeah, that killed us.
But I think when companies learn to adapt to the technology, like you said, with the streaming, you know, once it reaches a certain point, then it's okay, now we can make money off of it.
Yeah, 2/3 of the shows I work on are Netflix originals now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I've got Netflix and Cartoon Network. Those are 2 places that my shows are going. Yeah, I'm in a negotiation with Netflix right now on another show, so they're really the place for us to go. I don't really care about broadcast television.
Well, what shows are you involved with Netflix now?
I direct on the anime side, Fate Apocrypha, Fate Stay Night Unlimited Blade Works, Magi, JoJo, no, JoJo's not there.
JoJo's on Crunchyroll, I think.
No,
Yeah.
JoJo, well, the sub is, the dub is on the Cartoon Network. What's the other
Oh,
one?
yeah, right. Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
it's on Tonight.
yeah, it's tonight.
That's right. Nora, there's, I don't know, I got about a dozen titles on there, but the Netflix originals were the Unlimited Blade Works
Well, the technology allows other production companies, I mean, you know, you and I both go back to the days when, you know, like on television, you only had the 3 networks,
yeah.
basically, and the big movie theater, the big movie companies, they were the
Yeah.
only ones to produce.
Yeah, now this is here, my competition.
Yeah.
So this is it. So that's what's, it's really changed the business model considerably because of that. Fortunately, it's come back. I mean, I'm busier than I've been since Power Rangers, since the 90s. I'm busier now than I've been since then. So, and a lot of that has to do with streaming and Netflix.
Yeah, and they're saying, just talking about the industry, they're saying that the animators are now making the big moves now, which is why you got 80 now shows, originals on Netflix, because the animators are kind of taking, hey.
Well, they don't have that kind of power. The animators are far more respected than they used to be, especially the decent American animators, because there's so few left. But, and they're certainly getting respected more, and they're getting respected more by the streaming company. The pitch to a television network, because I've done those, usually involves story, how much advertising, toys, all of that stuff. The pitch that I'm noticing with Netflix is, how's the story? Who's animating? I've never had that question asked before. Who's your animator? We had to show them, and we didn't want to do that. We had to show them who we're negotiating with on the animation for them to even take us seriously. Because, well, we're asking a lot of money. This is a very high-end cartoon I'm involved in that we're hopefully going to get it made. But it's and it's going to look very different than anything you've seen before. Very expensive looking. But they want to know who's animating, and that's so the companies, the people involved in the know, the people with the money are caring more about who's actually the person making that image. I think it's just a little bit more education on the side of the producers because the recession flushed out a lot of the dummies that really didn't belong in this business.
Let me ask your opinion about this, because Vic Mignogna was here earlier. He was talking about how he thinks the movie industry in overall is horrible because now it's all run by lawyers and bean counters, and now there's no really creative people. Do you feel the same way, or do you think that maybe because you talk about artists, animators are being more respected now? So I wonder, how does that counter with that?
Yes and no. I agree. I agree with him on that. But it's not so recent. It's kind of been that way since the
I was
90s.
thinking, because even back in the studio days, it was
Yeah,
still...
it's you know, they think I got the big check makes to make all the calls, whether they're right or wrong.
Right.
But yeah, there is a big difference in that the people who were running the business when I was a kid, right before I got into the business, were by and large creative people with a business acumen, or they had a business person with them. Jim Henson, people like that. Those don't exist right now. Not in the mainstream. It is the people who were running studios were former CEOs and lawyers and accountants in some cases and stuff like that. And I can't tell you how much I bristle taking notes from an accountant, creative notes. And I'm like, dude, I did that 20 years ago. It didn't work. So
it's not going to work now.
So I do agree in that respect that the mainstream studio, system has kind of gone to that, but it's always kind of been that. What's going on now is that and this goes in cycles, by the way, is that a lot of little companies are starting to pop up again. And it's because of Netflix. and Hulu, and all of those guys who need content. So now the little guy's got a chance. And so all the really innovative stuff is being done there. The big movie companies, the Marvel, the Disney, Disney's buying everything. They just bought Fox's whole production company and library. I'm not sure how the government's letting that happen.
I think it was because of...
Well, they left because they split it into two pieces.
Exactly,
Portion
right.
stayed.
Yeah. Otherwise,
The
that would
movie.
be insane.
What a awful marriage that would have been.
Oh,
Fox News and
God.
Disney. Holy
Oh,
crap.
God.
Man. They'd have fired each other.
Yeah.
Tonight on Hannity, will Mickey and Minnie make it through the night?
Yeah. Oh, man.
So
it's interesting you
yeah.
mentioned Netflix, though, just because, like, as a platform, I have noticed that recently with stuff like Fate and with Magi, that there have been, like, a lot of big risks. And coming more from, like, the manga side of things, so the YouTube videos I do are anime, but also manga, like, there are certain series, like Promised Neverland is one that's really picking up steam right now with the manga, that it's weird because they're in a situation in which that show could either be farmed out to, like, a Fuji TV or, like, a TV Tokyo, but ultimately, it seems like a lot of people, both within the community, like as YouTubers or Twitter people or whatever, kind of want to see it go to something like Netflix or Crunchyroll, like as an original, because it seems like, yeah, they are taking the risks and they're sort of putting in the money in the places they need to put it.
And one of the lovely things that they're doing with Netflix is they tell us they tell me what they want, and then they leave us to do our job.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's the HBO model that did so well. It's hire good people and let them do their work.
Yeah,
You're the second
You
person
know?
to say that today.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
they're just wonderful to work with in that respect. I never get well, you should be doing blah, 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 blah. You know, and I get those notes from Disney. I'm going to be directing something for Disney here shortly, and I can't wait for the deluge notes. I'm going to get.
What I've noticed with Disney with the MCU movies is that they seem to be pretty much taking that tack, where the people who are making these Marvel movies are people who really love the characters and they love the
Yeah.
stories, you know. And to me, and I realize that they're all kind of cookie cutter movies, you know, and that but they're still very entertaining. And people do like to go see them, unlike whatever they're doing with the DC movies, you know, which people...
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's just they like Stan Lee's heart better. People like
Yeah.
Stan Lee's heart better. They like whoever's driving the stories of DC. So.
I think ultimately, though, it could be the passion side that you're talking
Well,
about.
also, DC takes itself very seriously.
Mhm.
And more of the Marvel movies are very self-aware and making fun of themselves.
Right.
I mean, Deadpool being the greatest example of that.
Right.
But that's not,
I love the
isn't that a Fox one? Isn't that one of
It's
the Fox?
still
Well,
it's
it's
still
gonna be Disney
the
now.
Marvel universe, and it's Disney now.
Yeah, exactly, yeah, it's Disney now.
Look, Disney did that mostly to get Spider-Man.
Yeah.
I think so,
It's
yeah.
mostly to get Spider-Man.
Spider-Man,
back to
Deadpool, and the
Fox.
X-Men, yeah, exactly.
Well, I've been saying that the MCU has been, until recently, has been doing all of their stuff with basically B characters.
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
So they've been gathering it all about but they're going to kill the genre soon.
Eventually, like you said,
Well,
cycles, you know.
Star Wars recessed for the first time in its history last year.
Yeah.
Sales went down, visuals went down. With I haven't seen the movie yet, but I
Okay.
understand it was a decent film. It wasn't the best, but it was good enough. But their merchandising dropped considerably,
Mm.
and I was a little afraid because I'm doing a comic book. This TV show I'm working with is a comic book based one,
Mm.
so I'm like, oh my god.
Yeah, right.
But that was one of the few that
Can
was
we get new
dropping.
stories coming out? I mean, the superhero stuff and the Star Wars stuff, that's kind of sucking all the air out of everything else. Can we get something, could we do a Star Wars today? In other words, like, you know, when Lucas came out with it back in the 70s?
Well, no, because Lucas did it in such a way that he had full control, and the studios don't give, unless you're independent, the studios don't give you full control.
Which
One of the-
goes back to the Netflix thing then, too.
Yeah, one of the beautiful things about the show that I'm working on, we're self-funded, so I don't have to answer to anybody. But that's very rare. It's really rare. So yeah, it depends who's doing the notes. Cool. Some more questions, or are we done?
That's less of an interview.
No, I'd be happy to keep going.
Sure.
I got nothing to do.
Yeah, I mean, it's just everything you've been saying is great. Like, I talked to LaShawn Thomas. He's the animator for Cannon Buster, and he's really big with Netflix. And we go back and forth on Twitter,
Yeah.
and that's kind of what he's been saying. The same type of things is like, hey, Netflix is getting ready to change the industry.
Well, look, they if you watch, they have all these hits. They also have a crap load of shows that didn't go anywhere. They went 2 or 3 episodes, 4 episodes, 6 episodes. But at least they give it a market and they give it an airing and they see what happens.
Well, the
You know.
technology allows that. Though.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but,
some
but
people
look,
actually-
because I've made pilots that never saw the light of day.
Sure.
But in Netflix, they'll air it, unless it's really bad.
Really bad,
I
yeah.
mean, they can't screw, they have to have a standard.
And you still have stuff like what Vic was talking about with his Star Trek. He's not making any money off of that.
No, he's got a special arrangement with the Paramount on that. They basically have an agreement that he can make no money off it, and they'll support him 100%.
But he's doing it. But the thing is, he's doing it out of love because
Yes.
he enjoys doing it.
Yeah.
And that's and he's not the only person who's doing that.
You would be surprised how many mainstream voice actors, Disney voice actors, come and do anime. And they make a tenth of what they make at Disney in anime. Literally, it's a tenth. But they do it because they love it. They love the storytelling style. They love the depth of characters. They love the fact that I can play a monotone character that's really deep, and they don't have some Disney exec going, "No, could you make that bigger, please?"
Sure.
You know.
Yeah.
But then they have their stories about how, like, when they were doing some of the paintings for Disney World and stuff like that, where they always had like some Disney exec looking over the guys, make sure everybody was just smiling, happy.
Oh, I'm sure.
And then the one guy who snuck in some fascist guards with rifles and sort of tiny windows,
How to blow a really good gig.
So just to talk about Robotech a
Sure.
little, from what I always felt like was it was Robotech and it was Maycross, which is kind of the same thing, and then it was Gundam. Now with Gundam just being this giant machine, is Robotech still like this cult classic or?
Well, it still has a good following. I mean, that's for sure. I was in 2006. I went to Tokyo to try to shoot some documentary footage on a documentary that never got finished. But I interviewed an anime shop owner in Akihabara, which is a long interview. I had to do it with an interpreter because neither of us spoke the same language. And he told me that the top sellers in his store were, in order, Gundam, Macross, Robotech, which was really weird considering, but they consider Robotech a completely separate thing than Macross, even though it has exactly the same footage for the first 39 episodes.
Yeah.
There's Macross, Southern Cross, and most
Mosquito, so yeah, but the stories begin to diverge, like in episode 3 or 4, they begin to separate off in order to set up what's coming. So yeah, it still has a following. Sony's got a movie in development right now. I don't know if it'll ever see the light of day. Warner Brothers sat on it for like 6 years. Then they sold it to Sony. Sony assigned the guys that did 300, that movie, to it. And last I heard, they were in script. They were re-scripting again. But I don't know. And there's an animated feature waiting for them to greenlight that. Once they greenlight the live action, then we can start working on the animated feature because that's already been written. It's just sitting and waiting. So it's still there. It's still there, just not as huge.
I still think Over at the Oscar should be required viewing.
Which one?
The movie, the original animated film from the late 70s.
Oh.
Love, Do You Remember?
Oh, Love You, yeah.
That should be required, because that's all, if you look at it.
Oh, it's great. I saw it in Japanese. I saw it in Japanese without subtitles.
Yeah.
I really liked it. I don't speak Japanese.
That's how we saw it originally too, back in the 80s. But you look at that, and that's all hand drawn, it's CGI. And the quality of the animation of that is just astounding.
Yeah, I just re-watched it in the HD version on Amazon Prime actually.
Another
Big one,
group
yeah.
that's taken the same model and hiring good people and letting them make a show for it.
I think Made in Abyss was just on
Who?
Amazon Prime. Made in Abyss.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah. But I cannot have seen. I wouldn't have seen that show basically on a Toonami or on a
No.
Yeah. It takes.
Look, Toonami's important. Toonami's important
Absolutely,
because
yeah.
Toonami is
I'm a shonen guy, so
is the first bite. It's the first taste for most people
for sure.
of this stuff, and it opens up, and it depends on when they taste and how stoned they are. But yeah, because 1 o'clock. I'm assuming everyone is watching us at 1 in the morning on Saturday is pretty messed up. So.
That's not necessarily true. I was in college.
No, if they're up watching it, they're messed up. If they're studying in college or DVRing and watching it the next day.
See, I would watch it while studying and then actually not get my studying done. So.
Got it.
In your opinion, where do you feel, because we talked about, we just went with Amazon Prime, we talked about Hulu, we talked about Netflix. Where do you feel Crunchyroll falls into this?
Interesting question, because Crunchyroll's about to get a lot of competition. One of the reasons that Netflix is buying up stuff like this right now, and one is that Sony, first of all, Sony bought Funimation,
Right.
and at the same time have chosen not to renew any of their streaming deals with any of the outside. With they're pulling all their product from Netflix, all their big product from Netflix and all this stuff. Disney's doing the same. They're both launching their own services. Sony's already got one. It's called Crackle. But they're remarketing Crackle. It's like the Sony channel. I've been overseas, and this is kind of how things are in Europe, and not Europe, in Asia. And Disney's doing the same thing. They're going to pull back, and they're going to launch their own streaming service. So now Netflix and Amazon and all these guys need product. So they're like, please, here, come on.
Yeah.
You know, as long as it's high end, it'll kind of fill the same niche. And for a very short period of time, I think we have a chance, those of us who are developing product, have a chance to kind of jump into that vacuum and make a statement and compete with these guys in a realistic way. Because I can't compete with Disney, I wouldn't die.
Okay.
But under certain circumstances, I can make as much noise as Disney. And you know, they're the gold standard, so that's who we're always trying to beat.
When that news came out about Disney starting its own streaming, a lot of my anime friends on Facebook were very pissed off, because everybody, you want to pay for this, and you got to pay for that, and you got to pay for these, all these different services, you know.
Ironically, what I think is going to ultimately happen in 5 or 6 years is somebody's going to come up with a way of consolidating all of these for one low price, and basically it's a cable company again, only it's online. I think that's where we're headed.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to pay. You know, I have two
Well,
of the
you know,
services.
you
I
pay-
have 2 of the services, but I'm not going to get
Yeah.
all of them. I just don't want to pay for that.
Well, it's like when you talk about cable TV. It's like I stopped getting cable TV years ago because it's not worth it. You've got 200 channels, you maybe watch 6 or 7 on a regular basis, you know, and it's just not worth it. And you know, now you're talking about, you know, in that sense, you have to have 3 or 4 different cable packages. You know, you got Netflix and Hulu.
Oh, they're changing. Because every time I try to shut stuff down, the cable company goes, oh, no, we'll give you a deal. Because they see it coming. They're not
Yeah.
stupid. So you just threaten to leave and they'll make you better.
I know AT&T keeps trying to get, I have internet with AT&T, and I pay a decent amount for it, but they keep trying to get me to get cable. I said, I don't want cable, I don't need it. I have the broadcast TV, and I have other ways of watching
Yeah,
stuff.
and AT&T Universe is actually DirecTV. So it's more thing. You have more?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Just switching to Power Rangers.
Sure.
Do you know Neil Kaplan?
Yes.
Okay. I did an interview with him, and he sings his praises about Power Rangers because, I mean, he was on that show maybe all the way up to 2000.
Yeah, I know they kept bringing him back for stuff.
And just various villains and whatnot. But with you being a writer on that show, talk about the voice, but you being a voice actor also.
Producer.
And producer. How come we really didn't get a lot of you being voice acting on the show?
Because I wasn't voice acting at the time very much.
Mm.
I was given the opportunity to develop a TV show from blank page to air. I'd never done that before. And so I decided I needed to focus on that job because I'd never done it. And to on my first shot out, you know, we developed the biggest children's hit ever. So I really focused on that. The only reason I played Saba is because I wanted an actor by the name of Ted Lehman. Now, Ted Lehman had been in Robotech. He played Exodore in Robotech. And I wanted Ted. And Ted had this lovely little British, well, he wasn't British, he's from Kentucky, but he had this lovely little British accent that he would do. And so I couldn't find him. And I found out he was like 76 years old. He had retired, gone back to Kentucky. And so I'm talking to them. I said, well, what does he sound like? I said, well, Ted sounds a bit like this. And they went, well, you're an actor, you do it. And that's why
Cool.
I had not intended to play that character at all. My job at that point, I didn't want to perform. I wanted to really focus on being a producer, being the head writer for a couple of years. I was the ADR director as well. And I just thought it was more important to do that. So I did.
Curiously, to hop off of that onto something else, if I could ask a question.
As long as Mr. Oliver's already.
I'm cool, yeah, like I
Sweet,
said, I
yeah,
got
yeah.
nothing else happened, or do I?
No, but are you good?
Yeah.
Okay, can you find your way back?
Yeah, I'm gonna go back. When's the dealer home close? 6? All right.
Probably 6, yeah.
Oh boy, that's 12 after.
I just need to meet my people over there, so I'm good.
You good? Do you need help getting over there?
No,
Okay.
I'm good. Go have fun.
Awesome.
Thank
My
you for
question
your help.
actually is
I'm
about
gonna switch
space.
the door to lock, we'll keep it propped open.
Oh, sure. My girlfriend is a massive fan of that franchise.
Yeah.
And it's funny because the origin of it is very much rooted in hentai. And so it's funny to sort of see now, like the original Fate, like the
Oh,
original...
Fate, we're talking Fate.
Fate,
Fate,
okay.
Rangers,
not Power
yeah.
Rangers, not Power Rangers. No. That's why I said,
No,
move
Fate
away
is
from Power Rangers on
absolutely, absolutely, I missed that
Right,
part.
right. So with the origin of that being basically in hentai, but now clearly seeing that it's got this massive female demographic, which is not what you would expect from something that, again, originated from a hentai series. Were you at all surprised by sort of the uprising in the love of Fate that sort of happened
No.
both of, no?
No, and I'll tell you, because I didn't like the first Fate that came out, I played Lancer and I did not direct.
Okay.
I was not a great fan of that one. I mean, it was good, I enjoyed it, it was funny, but
Stay Night?
it didn't move me.
Yeah.
When they brought me in to do Fate Zero as a director, and I also adapted the scripts on that one. That was the last series I ever adapted scripts on, I think. The storytelling was very different. And I think the reason why there's been this uprising is that storytelling, the depth and richness of the characters the Japanese creator created is compelling beyond language. And so as we were going through the scripts, we're trying not to screw them up.
Right.
You know? And we took a lot of time and to really grab, I call it chasing nuances. But we really spent a lot of time, a lot of takes, 20, 30 takes sometimes, to try to find that one little nuance, you know, that makes it just live for a moment. And I think that's why the combination of Zero being so good
Oh, it's amazing.
and the Aniplex seeing that and taking the time and spending the money to do it right, because it's up. We go as far as the client will let us, you know.
Yeah.
And I think the combination of those two things, it just has sparked people and moved them in here rather than up here. And I think that's why. And that was continued on in Unlimited Blade Works and continued on now in Heaven's Field, which will be out in a couple of weeks. It's pretty amazing. And those are continuous stories. Then there's the side stories, Fate Grand Order, which is kind of like Rogue One is to Star Wars.
Yeah,
It's a side
yeah,
story,
yeah.
it's part of it. That one was well done too, and there's another one that's happening right now that's kind of weird. I'll let you know how it ends. I've only seen 5 episodes. I'm going, okay, this is weird for Fate, but okay, I'll go with it for a moment. So I think that's what it is. It's just the compelling storytelling more than anything else. And really, the sex really isn't played much.
No, not at all.
No.
Until Apocrypha. It comes up in Apocrypha, and that's.
But it's important, the story, though, because of the children and...
But more importantly, the reason Apocrypha does that is because of when it came out.
Right.
It's appropriate to the time now. So
Sure.
so now they're mixing up genders and changing gender assignments and playing with sexuality in a way that's current with what's going on in society right now. So for instance, Drake, I like boys, but girls are better.
Yeah.
You know, and I forgot who the other one was. Oh no, girls only. You know? Astolfo is Mr. Astolfo. It's a boy, but dresses and sounds like a girl. So there's all those things that they brought into it that I think keep things interesting.
Thank you very much.
Can you have one last?
Yeah.
Yes, one last one.
Okay, now do that away.
We knew with Power Rangers, the second season,
Yeah.
they kind of took a dive. And from what I hear, Lord Zed, the creation of him was what really revived the show. How much did you play in that creation, or?
Well, I helped create the character on paper, but not the actual physical character. That was from me. There was a combination. One of them was, it wasn't so much that the show was taking a dive, it was that we needed to do something else.
Yeah.
The ratings were still high. And we needed a character we could own. Because the way these shows, we lost money on, the TV show itself loses money. The money's all made on merchandising. So we needed something that we owned, that we had most of it in. So Lord Zed was that. If you watch the movie that 20th Century Fox did, they added a couple of characters that they could own. You know, so that's what that's all about. Lord Zed was just a way to continue the story in a way we can control it. Because we couldn't control what the Japanese are doing. They're going to do whatever. Remember, I told you, they do whatever they're going to do.
Sure.
And the more we'd ask them to do it our way, the less they would do it. So, we asked them, can we just cover up the monster's mouth, the bad guy's mouth? That would help us a lot. They went,
Yeah.
no.
Well, that's how Lucas made his money from Star Wars.
Yeah.
He took a lower salary for producing and directing, but he said, give me the merchandise.
Yeah, but nobody does that. He invented that, got rich beyond the dreams of avarice, and now no one else will let you do that. So, does that answer your question?
Yeah, yeah.
Excellent, okay.